All right. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to the panel. We've got quite a full room, so thank you all. I'm Truman. Welcome. Welcome to the Art of ROM Hacking. It's our panel we thought we'd put together about both making and speedrunning ROM hacks, since that's something we all do quite a bit. Like I said, I'm Truman. I primarily play ROM hacks. I don't really make them. And I've had world record in a couple, such as Super Hark Bros. And I just generally like playing and seeing new level design.
I am GlitchCat7, and I make and try to play and beat as many ROM hacks as I can. I made Breakfast Kaizo World and The Search for Salmon most recently.
Hello, I am PangaeaPanga. I primarily make ROM hacks. I do stream some to get some inspirations, but I've been making ROM hacks since 2008, so it's been about 10 years now. And contrary to belief, I did not make Kaizo Mario World.
I'm GrandPOOBear. I'm mostly probably known for beating Panga's hacks, the Dram World series, and that's been my claim to fame, so living off his work.
Good man.
All right. Well, I thought we'd start today with sort of maybe a poo-led discussion on what exactly is a ROM hack, why are they good. I know we all play Mario ROM hacks, but there's quite a large amount of ROM hacks out there from a variety of game series. Just kind of talk about what it is and why we play them.
Yeah, I mean, a ROM hack more or less is just like a fan-made version of a game. I like to always compare it to like fan fiction. You know, you're taking characters. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is. It's our version of Mario. You know what I mean? What we would do if we got to create these characters and create these use these assets that that Nintendo has made for us. And that's basically it. We're all primarily focused on Mario here. But I do want to emphasize that there's ROM hacks for a wide variety of games. Most notably, I'd say like the randomizers right now, or those are versions of ROM hacks essentially too. It's basically any way you're kind of reimagining an original game. Like, but I mean, you can get to Adventures of Lolo has ROM hacks. Mega Man series has tons of them. There's Mario Kart ROM hacks. There's Battletoads Jeopardy, which is a ROM hack of NES Jeopardy, and it's just full of memes and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of different ROM hacks. Some of the most popular ones is obviously the Kaizo Mario World series. I feel like that is probably an inspiration for a lot of us in general, and that was made by Takamoto. Wait, was it 2006?
I think it was 2008.
2008?
Because it was the asshole Mario video that came out. That was like the viral video, but it was uploaded on Nico Video, right? As
Nico.
Making my friend play through my Mario ROM hack that T Takamoto made, and made his friend Arkiba play through it, or so the legend goes. And that was uploaded as like making my friend play through my Mario Kaizo. And then Kaizo in Japanese just means rearrange, but it came to colloquially mean this hard Super Mario World stuff. And that was 2008.
2008. And shortly after, Panga discovered it, and then it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah,
The rest is history.
Yeah, but it's really cool. We can do a lot of things. Like Kaizo does mean rearrange, and generally we don't change like physics or anything else in those games. But you can do a ton of things. You can physically change the code of the game and add in new items. You can add in new physics. You can change sprites. That's a really easy, popular way to make your ROM hack look original. Just changing colors, changing music is a huge thing. You're kind of only limited by the console itself and your imagination and your coding skill, of which I have none.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, or lack thereof. Yeah, are limited by that, which is really great. So you can really make these games very unique.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of level designers start with sort of just the basics, changing color palettes, maybe making a level with what's already in the game for you. Like, you can kind of see on screen now, Glitch has just scrolling through the vanilla SMW blocks. But once you really get into making ROM hacks and actually learn assembly code, whatever you want to use, tool of your choice, you end up with a lot of cool things. Like, you can get VVVVV, flip upside down physics in whatever game you want, and just basically add any mechanic from any game you want to an SMW ROM hack or whatever game you want to play in.
Or even add entire new games inside your game, like Link to the Past, Super Metroid Rando, you know what I mean? Like, stupid stuff like that. I mean, you're really only limited by the imagination and what your console you're currently working on can do.
You can literally just make Mario into a different sprite. You could make him. There's the Bob Ross one that it's like Mario, but it's Bob Ross. And my community made one with my cat in it. You can just replace Mario with like any sprite that you want, pretty much.
There's a Yonoid ROM hack with Jakku in it, and it's just they just put Jakku in the Yonoid game, which is great, and that's really awesome. Another thing that ends up happening because of this, because we can get so personal, is we meme a lot. Honestly, like inside the ROM hacks, Dram World is full of memes.
Oh, it's full of memes.
Yeah.
Jam packed. Even like the credits, like I shout out like random people just because I wanted to. Like no apparent reason. They had nothing to do with the game. I was like, shout outs to you. Shout outs to Race
PUBG. Yeah, PUBG was
Shout outs
my
to PUBG.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The obligatory shout out to Twitch chat so they don't turn on you. You know?
Only they spam Pog Jam.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think another great thing, at least in the Mario World community, is the way, and I would also say Panga kind of inspired this, the way we've kind of dedicated ROM hacks to other streamers and people that have inspired us, and that's something I really, really love. It's almost like if you name it after yourself, you suck. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like an honor, you know what I mean, to have somebody make like a ROM hack after like you. It feels cool, like it's really neat actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're challenging you, you know what I mean? Like Poo World, you know, it's like it's a challenge. It's named after someone you respect.
And it's full of like memes for that, and like even with Dram too, like you weren't just memeing Dram, you memed like Dodecahedron and me in there a couple times, you know, because you knew we were gonna play it. So it's really fun. It's really fun like that because we can get super personal with our friends in our community, and because we're such a small community, it's we can really dig into each other. I guess I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, and as the ROM hacker, you make your rules of the game that you're like hacking. So whatever you want to put in the game, you do it. As long as people like don't think you're an a-hole or anything, you'll be good to go.
Oh yeah, no one's ever thought that about you.
Coming from me, right?
It's never happened. No one's ever.
I mean, I remember watching you play through mine, and that was just a couple of times I'm thinking, oh my god, like we're not gonna be friends anymore after this one. I don't know how I can come back from that.
Yeah, for a Dram World, Panga actually, he lurks in everyone who ever plays his ROM hacks ever. So he made a video of every time somebody like cursed his name during a playthrough of Dram World 1, uploaded it to his YouTube channel, and just you could tell he just loves messing with people.
That's great.
And so yeah, besides all the personal stuff, just adding in references to your friends, adding in memes, people develop styles, and so you can recognize like, oh, this is a Panga hack. And I think actually with Mario Maker, I mean that's not a ROM hack per se, but the stylistic thing you put in levels really comes through. So like you can tell if a level was made by Carl or Dode or Pooh or Panga, and people just develop signature styles to the levels they make, which is another good aspect if you're following like a creator instead of just ROM hacks in general.
Yeah, it's almost like your level has personality, and like I even get like influenced by other levels. So being able to like really pour your heart and soul into a level, it can inspire other people, which may even like see people try to imitate your style, which is always like heartwarming to see.
So I thought next we'd talk about what got us each into ROM hacks, just kind of going down the line again, because it's sort of taken off in a big way recently. Like there didn't used to be ROM hacks for pretty much anything, or there was a small amount. They weren't well made, or the ones that were well made were hard to find. So just it's kind of unique how each person gets into ROM hacks and discovers them. Personally, there's a bunch of really old Proton John videos of him playing Kaizo Mario World 1 Special World on YouTube, which is how I discovered them. And then I think I found Dode or Dram doing speedruns of Kaizo, and I'm like, okay, it's coming from a speedrunning perspective. This looks like a lot more fun than just grinding through vanilla SMW for the rest of my life. So I can just get new games made all the time just by the community and just pick up what looks cool.
How I got into ROM hacks? I played Mario World when I was a kid. I think a lot of us did, and I think it's really cool how when I was a kid, the regular Mario World was so hard, and then I grew up and got a little better, and ROM hacks let the game grow up with you. that like even though now I'm an adult and I've had all this experience now, that I can still find something that's a worthy challenge, right? And it's like the natural evolution of that. I kind of think of it, you know, I like I'm not very good at it, but I like skateboarding, stuff like BMX, where it's kind of like the extreme sports of it, where you can go on a speed run and just ride your bike really fast, or you can start taking your bike off 50-foot ramps and doing backflips and stuff. And that's, you know, that's kind of what Kaizo is to me. It's that kind of extreme tricks and like just really pushing it to the limits and like seeing what you can do and get consistent at and be good at as a player.
That's a great analogy.
So I actually had 2 different eras of getting into ROM hacks. The first one was, again, when I said I started back in 2008, was when I discovered...
How old were you?
I was 10.
10 years old.
Yeah.
Genius.
And just keep that in mind whenever you watch like the item abuse series. Like Panga wasn't even out of high school during that.
Yeah, I was like in middle school, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I originally got into it after seeing the original A-Hole Mario video that got viral. I was like, hey, this looks really cool, because when I first played Super Mario World, I actually thought those like kind of easy and just like whatever. So I was like, I wonder if I can make like a really hard level. So after watching him do it, I was like, okay, it's definitely possible. And between like 2008 and 2012, I just went like really hard into trying to make like really difficult levels. And I actually took a break between 2012 and 2014 to just do other things. I guess not be such a dick to everyone, but back in 2014, that's when I discovered Dram, and he speedran Kaizo Mario World at SGDQ, and that kind of opened up a new perspective to me, because before, when I made all these ROM hacks, I was like, I never intended for anyone to, first of all, beat them, but also not like play them legitimately, because everyone that played my stuff used save states and like all these tools. So after watching Dram speedrun Kaizo Mario World without any save states or anything, I decided to try to ease up a little and make kind of difficult ROM hacks, but able to be played at a normal speed. So that's when I like made Dram World 1, Dram World 2, and it really kind of opened up a different perspective, not just for me, but for like the whole ROM hacking community of Kaizo. We decided to like try to make these bearable, but still very difficult, which is kind of a different thing that I learned about the past couple years.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I guess I'm kind of the newbie of the crew in a lot of ways, but I mean, for me, it was Mario Maker, which I think led a lot of people to ROM hacks lately, and has kind of helped to the new explosion. But after a year's, or I don't know, it was maybe like 6 months of Mario Maker, I was like, man, Panga's not pumping out enough levels. I need some more of his stuff. So I played Super Dram World, and the physics in Mario World are significantly more enjoyable to me than the physics in Mario Maker. So that just led me down a long rabbit hole, both with the Dram World series and other ROM hacks. And I've not gotten out of that hole since. I'm still deep and loving every minute of it. Yeah, it's super fun. So.
All right. Well, before we sort of get into what's going on the monitor with GlitchCat and Lunar Magic, I thought
I'm not sure if I know, man.
I thought we'd talk about, we kind of touched on it already a little bit, but why ROM hacks are really great, why we're here doing this panel, why we thought it'd be a good topic, and both from a personal and a streaming perspective, because some people play ROM hacks, to try and grow their stream, to try and find something fun to stream. It's kind of two different sides between your stream and why you yourself want to play them. So personally, like I kind of touched on earlier, I speedrun Super Mario World mostly, and that after about 4 years, I got kind of tired. After just never being bored, it just kind of hit a brick wall. So ROM hacks for me were a really good way to see the same game, the same physics, but just different enough to be fun again. So like if you're just running through vanilla levels, like Nintendo doesn't make very hard games. Not like really still to this day. So if you take a familiar game,
Mondo, man, is it Mondo hard?
It's gonna be outrageous.
Tubular.
Yeah, dude.
we got a solid 8 out of 96 hard eggs.
There you go.
But yeah, so if you just kind of add a little spice to the game you're familiar to, it gets a lot more fun. And recently, with the amount that have been coming out, you can't run out of things to do. And for a stream that's trying to find new content, but you have to keep viewers. Or you want to keep viewers. So people like SMW, if you're playing SMW, that's probably all your viewers really want to see. And a lot of people struggle with switching games. So ROM hack's kind of a good way to cheat that system, where you're still familiar with the physics engine and how the game works, but your viewers are getting something fresh. which for me is why I think ROM hacks are great.
Yeah, and also adding to them just from like a Twitch perspective, I think a lot of things that work on Twitch are, and even if you look at the big games on Twitch, you're talking about games that are providing a familiar yet different experience every time. And that's what ROM hacks do. It's very familiar. Everyone's familiar with Mario World and what goes on in Mario World, but it's also completely different. And they're going to probably see something that'll blow their mind that they've actually never seen in a Mario game before. If you look at Fortnite, that's why Fortnite's so great. It's just clips after clips after clips of like, holy crap, I've never seen that before. It's the same thing with ROM hacks, except we got to work a lot harder to get that one clip. we gotta spend 4 hours on one jump getting that one clip. But it is from a stream perspective. I think that's another reason why they're so appealing. You know, you're definitely seeing things like every time, probably any of us stream a ROM hack, someone pops in and is like, I don't remember this level in Mario World. You know,
I like the ones that say like, I played this when I was 10 and I beat
my
it.
favorite.
What's wrong with
Oh, I
you,
beat this,
man?
yeah. But yeah, and so I think from a streaming perspective, that's one reason why it works. And even Mario Maker before that, it provides a very familiar yet different, unique experience every time. And I think that's something that is very appealing to audiences on Twitch in general. And it's definitely a good way to extend out your love of your game. You know what I mean? If you're just like you just love Mario. Like I love Mario. I don't necessarily want to play anything else. Like I freaking love Mario, but I do get bored of the regular games, you know what I mean? But I'm not bored of the physics. I'm not bored of jumping on turtles. I still love that. I just need more ways to do it. I just need more levels. So it's definitely a good way to extend your skill set and your stream to an audience that's already familiar with your kind of your work, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think we're gonna move on to more of the creation process of ROM hacks.
That's what everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah. So we've been talking about playing them and streaming them, but really, this is where all the information is. This is why ROM hacks are great. This is what's going on behind the scenes. So while Pooh and I are mostly ROM hack players, we've got Panga and Glitchcat here to sort of talk us through the creation process. Maybe where you start, what the timeline looks like. Just the whole process.
Well, the creation process is a very, very long and very time-consuming part, but it is definitely worth it. It's kind of annoying because as people that want to make more difficult levels, first of all, we have to play tests to make sure they're even possible, and second of all, we have to make sure that it's like not annoying enough for the player to not want to play it ever again, but also fun enough to give them a challenge. But usually when we do make our ROM hacks, we use a level editing program. The current one we're using for Super Mario World is this called Lunar Magic. It was made by Fusuya, I don't know his name.
Fushoya?
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's made Lunar Magic. It came out 2007, something like that, and it's been around since then. Ever since that, we've all been using this, and it's very similar to like Mario Makers, where you can like place blocks, place sprites, and all this. But
I just call it like Mario Maker Professional Edition, you know?
yeah, it's really nice. But
Yeah.
for whenever we start out with levels, at least when I do, first I put ground on the floor.
I didn't do that. Whoops.
Okay, that's a good start. But usually what I did at first was I would kind of BS my way through a level, but recently I've decided to.
What? You just would like throw everything in there, you know?
Honestly,
like,
yeah.
The truth
I mean,
finally comes out.
No,
No, 'cause I don't know. I don't know. I think like I mean the item abuse series
Yeah,
you're
this-
doing that, but like Dram World I feel like definitely has
Yeah, no.
themes.
But
you
no,
know?
like when I first started off, when I was like 10, 11, 12, that was like my experimentation phase where I just like kind of play around with ideas and stuff.
So young.
But now,
Does it make you feel unaccomplished about your entire childhood? Is that like Panga's making item abuse at 12 years old? Like,
no, I actually made it when I was 12.
yeah. Item Abuse 3 was like your high school, right? That was like your
That was end of high school, first year of college.
yeah.
Yeah, I decided to come back after some inspiration from other people that have been making hard stuff.
Yeah.
So, but no, like at first I just kind of just played around, put a bunch of stuff on there and see where they go. But recently I've decided to think of a theme before going into a level, like maybe like a bomb theme or like a platforming, like shell jump kind of level. But for this one, I guess we're just gonna
I'm just kind of like
playing around.
yeah, I'm just sort of sketching. Like I do a thing when I start to make it where I just kind of like It's like you would draw a sketch of a person, or if you were an artist and you're drawing a picture, where I just kind of start and make a space and then see what kind of tricks are possible in that space, what works, what doesn't, and then kind of refine it from there. Like you start, if you want to draw someone's face, you start with just a circle and then some lines, and then maybe you draw those, and you like are always like erasing parts and kind of cleaning it up as you go along. There's a lot, like I said, it's the same artistic process if you would write a song or draw a picture or something like that. It's a refinement. It's mostly editing, right? And you just kind of spit some stuff out. Like that's, I'm just doing something here just to sort of just kind of go through the process and just be like, I have a couple tricks lined up. I think it might work. I actually have to like play it and test it to see if it works, and then like, so this probably won't even work at all when I try to go and play it. But then you just like refine that over and over again. Like, yeah, you say you think about dominant themes and kind of what you want to do, and how much. I don't know. I think it's because like there's a real insistence on focusing on your player, but I think some people kind of go out with that a little bit and they just try to make something good and fair. Example like Final Kaizo, Mitch's SMB3 hack, where he just like it's fair and it works, but you have to be just unbelievably good. So you kind of decide like what your target audience is. Do you want like something for easier, something that easier players could get into, or something more of a challenge? And the etiquette kind of is like you don't build above your skill level. That if it's kind of like Mario Maker. I mean, Mario Maker, you have to like beat it to upload it. But if you're making a ROM hack and you want someone else to play it, you ought to be able to play it too. You don't want to give somebody something that you just said, well, theoretically this is possible.
No, that's doors.
And I thought it was interesting. Like you have two, like Breakfast Kaizo is generally a more accessible ROM hack, whereas Search for Salmon is
Not.
Yeah, well, I mean that's an incredibly difficult ROM hack, and there were very conscious decisions into that though, were there not? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to. I mean, like whether or not it was a good decision, I made the decision. I had a vision. I know like this is what I wanted to make. I mean, for Search for Salmon particularly was, I beat like Kaizo 3, and I wanted there to be another horizon. So I wanted there to be something else out there that was, because like a lot of people have been beating Kaizo 3 lately, and I wanted there to be something else that was just this incredible, oh my word, no, why would anyone make this kind of thing? So I just wanted to, right at the end of the game, it's a spoiler alert, but it says to further the craft at the end of the game, and that was kind of the driving philosophy behind that one. But I'd like to go back and make something that like people can play,
Could you guys maybe mention like how you decide when to patch your ROM hack? Because I think that's another cool thing that we can do, because these all exist on the internet, is we can fix it. You know what I mean? When it gets out of there. Dram 2 went through a few patches. Like, how do you decide when we're just being whiny babies playing it versus you're like, no, this is a bad decision. I need to patch this.
It's a really tough line to walk.
Yeah.
I mean, Panga could shed some light.
Yeah, I usually go through a couple of tiers before deciding. The first tier is, does the game crash? And if the game crashes, that's definitely a patch.
He played my hack and it crashed in like 5
Yeah,
minutes
like
or
10
something.
minutes,
It's
game
like, well,
crashed.
that's it, rip.
Yeah, so if the game crashes, that's definitely a patch. But usually minor things like maybe graphical glitches or small bugs that aren't game breaking, we'll try to patch those out too. I've actually recently gotten into like if there's like a break, like a speedrun break, like for example, mushroom skip in General 1 was unintended. I actually left that in General 2 because I started to understand and appreciate people that speedrun and find strats. So anyone that finds like a strat that might sequence break one of my levels, I don't patch that out. Unless it like skips like 5 to 10 levels or something like that. That's usually when I draw the line, but that's how I usually patch things.
It's really cool when people find, I think it's awesome when people find that stuff, because it's like you're having this dialogue with your player all the time, that you've set up this challenge and here's the rules and here's the walls that you have to navigate, and then they get like really creative and they kind of surprise you and you're like, wow, like you thought of that, like I didn't even think of that and I made it. And it's like I like that back and forth dialogue between like like you set up a trap and then they try to get out of the trap. Like if you don't force them to do something, they're not gonna do it, right? Like you have to force them, and then they can like figure out ways to get around that.
So besides patches, when you guys have like a new idea, like, oh my god, how did I not think of this? This has to be in the level. Do you tend to go back and immediately put that in, even if it means changing the level you want to do that in? Or do you just kind of push it back for later, or even just not do it and just leave it as an idea?
Usually put in like a future hack rather than go back and edit it, because I think one of the most important things about a ROM hack creator is you gotta make sure that all of your levels are polished, they're finalized, that they're ready to go. Because if you ever want to change anything, like for example patching things, that's not like the most convenient thing, especially for a player who's like going halfway through the game and then you're like, oh, I forgot something, I gotta patch this out. So it's very important that if we ever do find like new ideas or anything new, that we don't try to change the game that we've made as much as possible and try to minimize the patches, which is why we, as ROM hack creators, we really have to be meticulous in our designing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an artistic thing between vision and commercial acceptability, and like every artist has to balance that in their own way. You know, do you want to make something? I don't know if it's like necessarily like a trade-off. Like you either get one or the other. But if you make it too hard, there's not going to be as many people that can play it. If you make it too easy, it might run the risk of being dull or uninteresting. So it's that balance. Like difficulty isn't the only form of interesting stuff, but it's like a balance. It's a give or take in that regard. I already made this way too hard.
I was gonna say, I think this is not working right
Well,
off the
see,
bat.
I just see this, but this is the process, right? Because
Yeah.
I just jumped in, like, you know, I'm making something in 5 minutes here. So the whole idea for the start is that you're gonna, if you hit the P switch now, you just die, and I want them to throw it up so they touch it with their feet. But what we could do, okay, so this is too hard, right? So let's back it up, and we don't like this, so we don't like the up throw move, so let's just put something here that they could land on, maybe like some munchers or something, so they can throw the P-switch forward instead of having to do a move that we've decided is too difficult, and maybe this will work. So now...
And like this is something that you would only ever see this movie's doing. This is something you would never do in a regular Mario World game, even a speedrun. This is absolutely no application at all to that. But it is something really cool you can do in the game. And a lot of these tricks now are being found through ROM hacks and through our experimentation through ROM hacks. He talked about mushroom skip, and that's something we didn't think was possible in Mario World, was to get an item in water when you're holding an item. It's a stupid little trick. It's only applicable to Super Dram World. Like so far, there's really no other way you could use it. Maybe I guess SMW randomizer could have some
Potentially, yeah.
some potential. But if you just look at like something like a Link to the Past randomizer, how much that's helped advance Link to the Past speedrunning in general. These ROM hacks really do help the main gameplay, or the main game, the gameplay of it rise, I want to say.
Yeah, so check this out. We've edited this now, and now instead of just doing the hard up throw trick, you now can kind of throw the P-switch out, and now you want to land on. Like this is like you're talking about process. Like this is my process. This is bad, right? Like I'm not even trying to call this out as good, but you're working through it, right? So now we can actually get to this next part, and you don't have to do that tough up throw part because that was too much. And so we'll check this section and see if that's any fun, and then revise that and move on. Like I'm deliberately making something sketchy. It's not polished and finished because that's just to illustrate the process.
Yeah, one of the most important things is proof of concept. So generally, once we find that something is possible, not too hard, after like various cycles of playtesting, we'll go back and polish out the level and then make it look aesthetically nice, or trying to make jumps easier, trying to make things more consistent. And that's the most time-consuming and hard part about the level design
Yeah,
process.
that's the polish for sure.
Yeah, he said the word consistent. I think that's like the most important thing in a ROM hack. Difficulty doesn't bother me. I don't mind spending 5 hours on a level if the level works the same way every time. It's when it doesn't work the same way every time, when Yoshis are falling from random areas or random heights and everything. That's what can really frustrate the player.
It's like you're making a room. You're like making a room, and then you're giving them the tools to do it.
Exactly.
You're designing. You like want to give them the tools. If you just lock them in a room and you say get out, like you need to like hide a key somewhere too. You know, like metaphorically.
It's like Saw.
It kind of is. Really.
Yeah, but at the same time, you want to have some randomness in there, which is where the fine line is between consistency and randomness, because you don't want to have a boss fight be the same every single time you do it. You got to like throw in something that, you know, you have to make the player dodge, but it's got to be at least a fair attack. For example, you can't have Bowser throw 1,800 hammers at you and just cover the entire screen. You just got to find the balance between, okay, I'm going to be seeing a different thing every time, but I'm going to be able to get through it technically, no matter what it is.
The Wendy fight would be like a great example of that in Super Mario World, where she's just popping up anywhere, but
Yeah, and they've
still beat her. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on where she pops up, they've got fireballs going around,
Exactly.
which just adds like a little bit of a hazard for you to dodge.
Mhm.
And so I guess for the next part, GlitchCat is sort of going through this. We will be having a Q&A at the end about more general stuff, but if anybody sees anything going on right now as far as level creation goes and what's going on the screen, feel free to ask. Just raise your hand.
Better call me out on my bad ideas.
Yeah. So if we're not doing a good job explaining anything, or, you know, maybe it's not apparent what's going on, feel free to ask about anything level creation related. All right?
So what I wanted, so first of all, the idea was that we're gonna jump up here and throw the P switch up like that. Actually, I got it to activate the no blocks below, but I thought that was a little bit too jank. So then I thought, well, maybe you could just have the P switch land somewhere. But then when I would throw the P switch forward, right, it would just kind of fly off. So I put these two blocks there to kind of give you like a backboard, so you could kind of like Kobe it in there. So now we've refined the idea through like 2 iterations, right? And now I mean this looks jank and ugly, but we're kind of on our way to something. So now you can do that trick. So now it's way easier than it was, and it gets less and less jank there. And now you can now you get the turtle, and now you get to go on to the next obstacle and whatever that would be. So you run over here, get a mushroom, get a Yoshi, maybe just kill him, real quick like that.
That's key.
But yeah, it's just to illustrate, to illustrate the process. Like it's all right here in this P switch trick. You start with one thing. Okay, that thing doesn't work at all. Well, how can I make that a little bit better? Okay, that's a little bit better, and then you just slowly start to polish it up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe do you have what's your process with that?
It's a very similar process actually. Like you start off with an idea, be like, oh, okay, this doesn't work. How can I make it better? So it's very similar to your process. One thing that I try to do is also get other people's perspectives. So other playtesters. So because evidently when you're the creator, you always know what you want to do. And when you bring in another person's pair of eyes, you get a little different perspective. Someone might not see the same way that you do, and it gives you like more options to either make it more clear or to change it up even more to make it like more evident what you want.
Yeah, to what he said, I think it's always easier when you're the creator because you have the vision in your mind. You know what I mean? You know what that piece of art is about. You know what that song is about. You know what I mean? But you have to leave it to the player to interpret. If it's vague, it's gonna make it a lot more frustrating for the player in a lot of ways. But sometimes things are like so effing cool that like it doesn't matter if it's vague because like once it goes off, you're just like one of those all the like little cool like Rube Goldberg contraptions that you have in like Mario Maker and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like the constant million little decisions that you're making as a designer. Is it vague? Is it good enough? Is it worth
Does
giving
the
up a
coolness?
trick?
Yeah, is the coolness outweigh like
Yeah.
the frustration? Yeah, and it all matters. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about Panga going into people's streams and watching them play as RomHack, but you really haven't lived until you get an early copy of a Panga game, get trolled on your, and you send him a picture of it, and he says, "Wow, I can't believe you fell for that."
Yeah.
So, it's like you get a preview to what he's gonna do to you in the rest of the game.
Yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit about trolling specifically, or like how trolling works. Because like that's kind of a part of it, right? Like the original Kaizo Mario had invisible boxes that would pop up and kill you when you tried to make a jump the wrong way, and like trolling has evolved into this whole like real meta and art. With the it really is. There's a whole like there's like different philosophies about it. Some people troll by deception, by kind of getting you to think something that it's not what you really do. Some people just kind of throw moles on your head. It all depends.
Do you guys ever like think like I'm gonna get this specific player with that troll?
Oh, all the time.
Do you like did you when you were making Dram 2, you're like, oh, Dode's gonna hit that fucking block?
Yeah, I know. Like for example, like Dode is also a very talented Kaiser player. He always looks for ways around. Same with LinkDead. So like if they ever try to like cheese or like try to break my level, there will be like a hidden troll just for them.
As far as trolling goes, I kind of like to think of it as sort of a fighting game between the player and the creator. So if you're just standing at the goal to a level, there's like a 50-50 mix-up on if waiting is the right move.
Yeah,
Also,
waiting
it's
or
going.
going.
Yeah, it's ultimate mind game.
Yeah, waiting or going. You gotta make
Yeah.
the choice once
Yeah.
you hit that last pipe.
Yes, you just have to think, okay, what does he think I'm going to do? And then you just gotta zig when they zag.
And it's really, I mean, as a maker, you kind of want to think through what your player is going to do and kind of anticipate and maybe try to block them off ahead of time and say, well, I know they're going to try to go for the right there, or maybe put in like some kind of bait, like a mushroom or something. Oh, they see or a coin block. People are kind of sheepish in that regard. Like I do it all the time when I play. Like there's a coin block, I'm going to go hit it. But actually that's the trap, is that you were supposed to try to do that and then die for some reason.
Yeah, I think
I'm trying to troll right here.
I think the best trolls are the ones where like you're supposed to do this. This is what makes logical sense. But you're not. But it's gonna kill you. You know what I mean? It's like making the player. This is a logical thing to do in this game, but it's gonna end up killing you. Is great. One of my most viewed clip all time is Panga trolling me at the end of Dram 2.
Oh, I popped off when you.
Yeah,
said
it's
that.
like a level where it's like you're P speed the whole time, so you're just like going through it as fast as you can, and then right at the end, like you're like an inch away, maybe like 3 pixels away from the finish, and he just shoots bullet bills right in your face. like out of nowhere. And it's great because you have no time to react to it. Truman got hit by one just like that too. Yeah.
That was a real fun one.
Oh yeah, man. And it's just like, and you've been playing these levels for 4 hours, 5 hours, and then you're pixels away from the end, and then you're going as fast as you can to get in there. And he knows it though. He knows that's what you're gonna do. So he smacks you in the face with a bullet bill, like, you know.
Yeah, over the years, we've developed more intricate ways to troll people. Back in like the early days, it would just be invisible coin blocks, but now like it's transformed to like bullet bills coming out of like the goalpost, or like enemies that actually act differently. Like something is supposed to bounce off of it. Oh, it's actually a falling platform. So
Yeah, because
Fish
that's
from
one of the
God.
really
yeah, the fish.
The fish from
Falling
God is
fish.
the best.
that's one thing that SMW hacking really has kind of over Mario Maker, is that you can retexture things, and you can make a fish that acts like a fireball. You can make a platform that acts like something else. You can really get like deceptive with it and give things like unintended behaviors, or give tiles unintended properties that the player's like going to look at it and think it's one thing and it's another. And that can kind of go both ways, right?
Yeah, for most of the deception stuff like that, your player's only gonna fall for it one time. Like, okay, I fell for this. Like, it's just something else retextured. So you got to really plan for that first experience to kind of hit them really hard.
You want to make them memorable. You want, when they die, you want them to know they died.
That's very morbid.
In the back.
Hello. We should re-say the question for the mics. So the question was, as a player, is there any sort of mechanic or thing in a level that really elevates a ROM hack from good to great, in our opinion? So I guess that's a good one to go down the line for. So for me, as far as SMW goes, it's usually a good cape level, because it's such a unique thing to Super Mario World that was really underused in ROM hacks for a long time. So if you have a creator that really knows what they're doing with the cape, that's what really makes a ROM hack for me.
I like shells. I like shell tricks and shell jumps, and I threw one in there. Do the shell tricks and item abuse. I really like. I like using the properties of the game in an unintended way. So if you give me some shells, or maybe a key, the tricks with a spring where you're holding a spring and you throw it back and forth and you jump off the spring in midair. Anytime I can use some kind of thing in an unattended way, like with a trick, I like that. It feels like a cool skateboard trick or something, you know.
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to say shell jumps mainly. Shell jumps are they're very interesting because they can easily be boring and monotonous if you just keep playing in your level. So I like them because if you find interesting ways to use them but not overdo it, they make them look cool and make you feel good. But yeah, that's why I have a lot of them. But I don't want to put too many in. But I just have to find that right.
Oh, just make a hack with nothing but them.
I mean, I'm actually gonna say two things. Like, one, I judge you by your Ultra Star level in your Kaizo ROM hack.
Oh, boy.
And if you're making a Kaizo Mario ROM hack and you don't have an Ultra Star level, it's not a ROM hack yet. You need one. But two, and this is gonna sound kind of weird, but nice aesthetics. If you took the time to make your hack look pretty and sound pretty, chances are it's gonna play pretty too. It's very nice too as a content creator. If your hack has a very unique look, just for me, and this is gonna sound kind of stupid, but it's a lot easier for us to play through it because people will know exactly what it is, and it's very unique, and it'll leave people with a unique experience. So nice aesthetics is a huge thing. Like, making it play good is the most important, but after that, like, just making it pretty it goes a long way. And I'm sure we all
is also like it.
yeah, like, look at Cuphead as a game that like looks pretty, and that adds to the experience. Like, it's the same thing with ROM hacks or any game really.
Yeah, I just want to say how it kind of speaks to the community we have, that you can say Ultra Star and that means something. Like,
Yeah.
by itself, that doesn't mean anything, but the whole original Kaizo, like, the creator had such a unique style in that level that just came through, and people were like, I want to do this in my ROM hack and put my own spin on it. And you've got this whole, like, sub meta of Ultra Star
I love
levels.
that. That's my favorite. Like, that's my favorite part in a Kaizo ROM hack is when I get to the Ultra Star. You know, I love that. Chad? Restate that.
Yeah.
You can,
Okay. So the question was, do you ever have a trick in a level that you're making that you think is really cool and going to be a lot of fun, but your playtesters or people playing the game just don't have a good time with it at all? And how does that impact your level design decisions going forward with the same kind of trick or future tricks?
Oh, I have those all the time in my level.
yes. Short answer, yes.
Yeah. So again, the trade-off between is the trick cool and is it frustrating? You got to find that right balance. The playtesters come into play and tell you, oh, okay, this is not how it's supposed to go. And after watching people play it frustratingly, that's when I make the conscious decisions of see, okay, next time if I want to do a trick similar to this, we'll change it like this and this and this. And that's why playtesters are really important because they really give you that perspective to see, oh, maybe this trick wasn't the greatest idea, even though it looked super cool. So.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot. It's also like, it's communication. That if you have something that you want your player to do that's very strange or a little bit counterintuitive, that you want to kind of design your level to imply what they want to do. And so sometimes for me, if I make a really hard trick or something and it doesn't go off, or someone's struggling really hard, Panga can tell you all about my crappy hard tricks.
Still cool though.
Yeah, well, see that's the thing. Like, but it's that I want to figure out, okay, it's like, well, the trick failed, but I don't necessarily consider it a failure of the trick unless it's very, very jank. It might be a failure of communication that I just didn't imply or tell the player, give the player enough tools to work with. And so it's about like making that easier for them to understand and have them come up to that part and go, oh, okay, I get it. Like, this is what I want to do, because that's motivating. But if they just get there and they die and they don't know why the trick fails over and over again, then they just get crushed, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing he talked about. It's kind of stepping up the tricks in little ways, you know what I mean? Like, you give a player a Yoshi and then have them jump off the Yoshi underneath. But you know what I mean? That's really easy. The next one, the Yoshi's falling, and then they have to drop underneath. Giving them a way to scale up to the ultimate trick you want them to do is a really a great way to handle it. You know what I mean? Introduce them to it. Yeah, there's also like communication blocks too. Like, you can straight up put in text in a lot of ROM hacks too, and you can just be like, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's obscure. Now you know.
Yeah, and then go off that, like, things like that, they aren't worth patching out. Unless, like, it's so frustratingly, like, annoying to deal with that people just can't pass it. It's your job as the creator to make something that is worth playing. And if you do have these, like, mishaps in your, like, ROM hacks, that's when you, as a creator, you learn from your mistakes. And getting 10 years of experience, I've learned a lot, like, from all my past mistakes to try to improve. So, like, for example, Dragon World 1, I still had, like, some stuff that I had to fix. In Dragon World 2, I try to do a little better. There's still things that I still have to learn from. So if I ever, like, make a Dragon World 3, there's always, like, a learning process always going on.
If
Maybe.
I saw Carl raise his hand. Carl Sagan, ladies and gentlemen, right there. Exactly. Mhm. Puzzle. I was gonna say, yeah, puzzle ROM hacks. I actually there's a couple ROM hacks that I really love that aren't hard or Kaizo. One is there's a Super Mario Brothers 3 ROM hack that you play as Peach trying to save Mario, and whenever you get the frog suit, she turns into a mermaid, and it's actually really cool. A lot of it's in like in this little mermaid thing, and the frog suit's really fun to use. And then I actually just played this one called Mario Ultimate, which is it's basically Mario 1 or Mario Lost Levels physics actually, but it's kind of like a Metroid game, and it has a big giant Metroid style map, and you got to go and hit a block here to get a fireball, to go down here and do something. And that was like a really unique perspective on Mario for me, like merging two really fun games. And I already mentioned Battletoads Jeopardy, because that one is just like, it's like Jeopardy, but it's all Twitch memes. So that was like super fun, but it's also really broken. Like the for whatever reason, like the computer went over 100K and then it went back down to 0, and that's how I won. So
Kill screen.
Yeah. As far as different ROM hacks go, I kind of like the one-off fun ROM hacks that people make. A lot of which are made by our friend Dots Are Cool. He makes a ton of them. Like
One mind.
yeah, like
Mind.
One Mind, where the players switch control. If you have two controllers plugged in, it switches control every second, which is a lot of fun. Then there's like SMW, but everything's a silhouette and like just with plain color backgrounds. And my personal favorite, Steamed Hams, but it's an SMW ROM hack, which is about 1 minute and 30 seconds of mashing through dialogue and like 30 seconds of gameplay. But just you can make a ROM hack of whatever you want, and some of them are just fun to play through.
Yeah, I like the you can, and so sometimes it can get a little jank or a little weird because you're doing things with Mario World that it was never ever intended to do, but you can hack in a lot of extra mechanics, and I've liked people using that lately. There's one that's out right now where you have a propeller hat, like in
Oh, that one looks so hard. Dude.
it's pretty tricky, and you're like juggling with it. But the cool thing about some of the extra mechanics is that they're exploitable in the same way that the original mechanics were. So, for example, with the propeller suit, if you're holding an object and you get a spin and you throw the object up, you get another spin, and so you can now like exploit these extra mechanics to do cool stuff with, or extra blocks that let you wall kick off them, or all kinds of stuff like that. Where it doesn't even necessarily have to be hard, but you're just like completely twisting the game out of shape into something totally new, and it gets away from that whole platforming. Platforming is the way, that's the only type of game that you get out of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of them. This is gonna sound weird, but I don't know if you guys ever played Trials. It's an Ubisoft game. Yeah. Okay, well, Trials has like this dope level editor where you can make completely non-motorcycle games. You know what I mean? And it is the same thing to a certain degree with these ROM hacks. Like you can completely make, like Carl was saying, the puzzle hacks. Like you don't do any platforming at all. Like you're just working your brain. And your chance of death is really low, but your chance of sitting there is really high, and that's super fun and super great. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of Trials.
Q&A, can we, just
Yeah.
do it? Yeah.
But yeah, no, just adding on to what you said, like games like Trials, Halo 3, like all those,
Forge,
that
yeah.
have Forge and like built-in.
It's kind of a version of ROM hacking, yeah.
Yeah, but they have like the advantage of the developer of the game making those and you're shipping that with the game. We've got basically all community-made stuff, which I think is really cool and sort of adds a unique aspect to ROM hacks. But yeah, we can continue with Q&A.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
We've played Mario before, we're completely new to this whole ROM hacking thing. You guys have just thrown out a bunch of them. Where should we start?
Well, if you want to start with a Kaizo ROM hack, I would say Quickie World or Corso 1, or there's one called Learn to Kaizo, which is just tricks. Like, it's not necessarily fun, but it's just tricks, and it'll get you some details. If you want, there's like, for SMW, there's Return to Dinosaur Island, I know, is like it's kind of like Super Mario World 2. It's really easy.
Yeah. Also, just the original game too. I mean, a lot of
Kaizo
people.
1, is that what it is?
No, I mean,
so bad, man. It's so
no,
bad
I didn't.
now.
No, I meant original Mario World.
Oh,
like
yeah,
if you, because a lot of people like Panga and Dode and you and LinkedIn and lots of others and myself, we all we played a lot of the original Mario World, and so. Kaizo is built out of the fundamentals, right? So if you just get better at the fundamentals, things like regrabs, holding shells, grabbing shells, manipulating objects and stuff, it'll go a long way for Kaizo. I know it's not the most exciting answer, but it it is kind of true in a way.
Yeah. Sorry, ellipses.
Okay.
Like, are you asking like what other games could use editors?
Yeah, actually, you would be surprised. There actually is, there's a Lunar Magic for Adventures of Lolo, and if there's one for that, like, I feel like there's Mega Man games, the Mega Man X games, all have them. There are a lot. I will say, however, like the SMB3 Workshop sucks compared to Lunar Magic. There's not a lot that are like really user friendly, I would say, and that's going to be the hardest part. But there's pages and pages of forums for pages and pages of really bad forum posts that'll I know that sounds bad, but like romhacking.net is a great space to start for non-Mario ROM hacking. Super Mario World Central, smwcentral.net is probably where you'd want to go for Mario. But non-Mario, romhacking.net is going to have all your tools. Otherwise, you gotta get with your testers of your games and see if you can, the guys who know the code and the guys who have broken down the games, and see if you guys can help develop something. Because I know for me, I'm not smart enough to get in the code and start messing with things. You know what I mean? I need the
And
interface.
there are new editors being made, and
All
there
the
are
time.
people. Actually, I know for a fact right now that eventually there's going to be like a Doki Doki Panic, like a better
Mhm.
Mario 2 editor, and like the way forward with that, I mean, like nobody knows how to make a Kaizo out of that. So what you do is just start just make an empty space and just see what you've got. Right? You pull up a radish, and all right, well, I'm just gonna make a big gap and a radish here, and we're gonna see. And then you start kind of working with that. Eventually, you make yourself PogChamp and go, okay, I'm gonna force the player to do that now, and then you just think about how to force it in.
Yeah, I'd like to add, as far as making and finding level editors go, it's really about finding somebody or a group of people who are dedicated enough towards like the idea of a level editor for a game. And with speedrunning, honestly, that's not as hard to find as you would think, because we're already super dedicated to one game, pretty much. Like there's a Chinese Super Mario World
Oh God.
entire.
Oh
Mess
my
with that.
So yeah, so that's a bootleg NES bootleg of Super Mario World, and there's a whole project going on right now to it. First, involved making the level editor, and now the actual one Chinese Super Mario World ROM hack that people wanted to be developed is currently being made, just because it was sort of a small group of people who really wanted that to happen.
In the middle right there. Yeah. Like in Super Mario World, I wouldn't do one with midair shell jumps, which is kind of stupid to say because Rezi's about to do like 3 tonight in his Mario World run. So, but it's just something that like again, it just points to like I'm never gonna get consistent at that. So why would I spend my day doing a level that has that right in the middle of the level? You know what I mean? Where it's just like it's gonna be luck to a certain degree. Like I can get somewhat consistent, but I mean that's for me.
Yeah, as far as casual playthroughs, midair shell jumps are a big one, but as far as there's things that'll make me not want to speedrun a ROM hack that
Oh, yeah.
is a big different list, such as
Waiting.
inconsistent things that are based on frame rules. Just there's stuff that if you're playing through a level once, you just want to beat it in a casual playthrough, you can deal with it. But if you have to do it, 4 or 5 hours a day, several times a week, you're gonna want a different set of requirements than if you're just playing through it once.
Can I had a kind of an answer for that too. Wait, sorry, it was like I'm kind of always making a judgment as I'm playing something. If I'm getting frustrated, do I like this? Do I continue to feel motivated? Is it worth it to me? How am I going to feel when I beat it? And that the answer to that question is always changing, and I can like revise my answer at any time. Sometimes I just get really frustrated, and then I learn something, and I can just do it that way. Okay, and it puts all the wind back in my sails. Or you get so far and you realize like, crap, this is just completely RNG now, and so you're like getting motivated or demotivated as time goes on, and you're just kind of making decisions in the moment. That's at least that's how I do it.
Got right here. Sorry, Sarah.
Once you play the game normally, you kind of get an idea of what the limits are. Like, for example, you can't put like 20 million Bowsers in the game, but yeah, like generally on these older consoles, you do have to be very conscious of how many like sprites or how many like blocks you put on the screen at once. So it's kind of again a trial and error thing. You load up the game, you be like, okay, it's lagging a little. The sprite is actually not showing anything, but yeah, you just you eventually get a feel for like trying to better to play it safe than too much, because you don't want to like go into a level and then realize that the platform just does not exist because it doesn't spawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think artistically there's actually really something to be said, and it's actually something that I really enjoy. It's one of the reasons why a lot of my hacks don't have hacked-in mechanics or anything, because in like a haiku or something where you have it's a artistic form with very limited structure, and inside that structure you have to like working inside that structure is the challenge. So like working with the limitations of Mario World and like what it can do informs the kind of decisions that you make. And I always find like I wind up, if something's kind of chugging along and I have to break it down because I'm running up against the limitations of the platform, I find that it ends up kind of being better because you wind up with something that's just like very pure and simple and works exactly as intended. Like do the most with as little as possible. And that for me is a cool design challenge.
Yeah, the limitations really are kind of a good thing too because it really tests your creativity about how you want to achieve something given those restrictions. So like if you want to like do like a chuck gate or something, like you try to be like, all right, how do I do this without making the game lag? So it is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing.
Sir? I think they have to volunteer as tribute. And choosing your playtesters, right? I mean, you obviously don't. I mean, if you guys probably have certain people in mind when you're making a ROM hack, right? That you want to playtest and that you want to see play, so you wouldn't let them playtest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, we choose playtesters that also are pretty knowledgeable about like the hacks that we make because we don't really choose people that are just like getting the Kaizo hacks, but hey, play this or whatever. Like we want like good, solid feedback with different perspectives. So like for example, Nexus, he's a very talented Kaizo player.
Nexus is awesome.
Shout out to
Nexus.
Yeah, he's also a ROM hacker. Like he's playtested a lot of our ROM hacks and he's given good feedback. So that's where we look for playtesters before we like try to jump ship and get like more people.
He's one of those guys that's really like leading this like new charge of ROM hacks too. He's pumped out a ton of them and great tutorial ones and a lot of ASM stuff too.
Yeah, that was Learn to Kaizo was his. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you guys don't want somebody like who hasn't really played the game before to be playtesting, but have you ever disqualified somebody for being too good at ROM hacks from playtesting?
Dode.
Yeah. You don't want somebody just up there shredding through your game before it's even out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want Calco coming in and just being like too easy. You got one?
So you mentioned before the frame rule and weird just sort of RNG that's built into Mario World. Is that something that can be knocked out and made more consistent? So, would that still be recognizable as Super Mario World physics, or is that
Well, like in Dram 2, you took out wall clipping in Dram 2 in one of the patches. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, pretty much every frame rule can be patched. I never really thought about it because like one decision that I make is trying to keep the authentic feel of the game. But when you do patch out the frame rules and all these things, the game still does feel the same. It does make it a lot more consistent. So I think that's the path that all of us ROM hackers are leaning towards too. But before, like, the frame rules were kind of an issue. One thing that we try to do as, even if you get, like, a bad frame rule, you got to make sure it's still possible. Because when you leave it up to 50-50 chance, that's when it gets frustrating for the player. So that's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, you were talking about shells and shell jumps and stuff before, and I was actually I'm working on something now because there's I think you made it, right? It's a patch that checks for sprite interaction on every frame instead of every other, and that's like one of the most awesome things ever because you can use that to make shells more consistent, especially or item abuse interactions where if you're doing a shell jump and you have to clear a height of a certain distance, if you get the bad frame roll and contact the shell more inside of itself, you get a lower end height, even if you did the same trick correctly. But with the frame roll patch on, you know that you're going to be contacting shell in a consistent way, and it becomes way more easier to make shell stuff in general. So that's I personally that's like my favorite thing. So
I don't think any
I'm
player
really grateful for that patch.
Yeah, I don't think any player's ever been like, "Oh, damn, this game works like how I thought it should work." You know, like
it's kind of fun when it's weird. Like that's something I like about Mario World is you can play it for 30 years and it'll still do something that is really surprising, and you're just like, "Wow, I've like never seen that."
But I wouldn't notice like the frame rule patch unless they told me. And I've jumped off 1 billion shells at this point. I probably wouldn't notice it unless someone told me. I wouldn't notice that I'm not getting the second frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even know if it worked until I asked like the guy who like helped me create the hacks. Like, does it work? He's like, yeah, it works.
It's a really great patch.
Yeah. As far as stuff that is patched out and noticeable, Panga, or I don't know, he had it in his hack. There's a patch that makes it so switching direction with cape while you're flying is consistent, which is great. And, you know, because in original Super Mario World, you're never changing direction. You know, it's press right the video game. So, you know, that's something you wouldn't notice per se unless you actually needed to do it in a ROM hack. So even though it's something that's changed and very different, it still feels, you know, genuine.
I think we all like the life upgrade, things.
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like the extensive ASM, like the wall jumps and everything, and like upside down PvV stuff. But like I do love those like quality of life upgrades. Totally.
Yeah, one thing that's really important is to make sure that you communicate that these changes are existing in the ROM hack so that the players aren't just jumping ship in.
All right, I think we've got time for one more question.
Oh my gosh! Now I'm not
it's a
picking.
I'm not picking,
I'm not picking.
All right, who wants it the most?
Over there.
Oh, right there.
Well, actually, you don't. You can plug your PC into the S2D SNES and use a WebSocket and just keep uploading your hack to that if you really wanted to. Most people don't. But
When I'm usually making, I have like I can do it on the emulator. I'm using I use Z Z. I was gonna say ZSNES.
Oh boy, that's not.
Yeah, I totally use these. Yeah, using ZSNES SNES 9X too. This is what I'm running right now on this. It's not perfect, but it's kind of like it's like making a sculpture or something. You kind of cut a rough form out and you play it on the emulator and it's kind of rough. And then I have my console over there. I pop the ROM out, stick it in my console, and then maybe or even get like a game saver and try if you want save states on console. And so you kind of rough it out a little bit and then take it over to the console, take some notes. Okay, this was kind of weird, and you start to feel those differences and you polish it up specifically to be played on console.
Yeah, the way I see it is if I play with input lag and if I can beat it, then it's a good difficulty because rather than playing
That's a good point.
Rather than playing like on the CRT with no input lag in the controller, I actually been playing on keyboard with input lag for like 5 years. So being able to like see if I can still do that even with all these challenges, it helps with like the difficulty. But even though it like make seem like it's harder to play test, it's not that bad.
I think the vast majority of ROM hack playing is done on emulators. The vast majority.
You can go a long way with emulators. If it's something that sounds interesting and it's something that you want to get into, don't let cost be a barrier. You can get really well started on emulators, and I know fantastic players that play only on emulator that do great. It's kind of just what you're willing and able to adapt to, like as from a gameplay perspective at least.
Yeah, I don't. There's no leaderboard of ROM hacks that's like no emus. Like we're totally like you can use them, man. Like it's totally okay. Yeah.
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being on the panel. Yeah, well,
I made a whole
thanks for
checkpoint.
doing it. Yeah. You can see what GlitchCat's doing up there, but this is a lot of fun, and thanks again.
GlitchCat's gonna put this level on SMW Central too, just like up to the
If you guys want to play this, you can play it in the practice room.
ROM hack panel. Yeah.
Yeah, quick spiel, but if you ever want to get into ROM hacking, check out smwcentral.net. They have a lot of resources for that. Or even just any game, just like if you think about it, like if you really enjoy a game and you want to try to make it your own, go for it. Try to get a group of people, see if you can come up with like
SMW Central. There's also a ton of Discords. If you see someone who's made a ROM hack, like feel free to contact them because generally they probably want to help. You know what I mean? That's not a bad thing. Chaos Composer for SMB3. There's guys out there for just about every game. You got to find them. ROMhacking.net's another great asset. Yeah. Enjoy ROM hacks. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Super Metro. Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you, guys.
I don't know though. I don't know. Cool.